With UFC 316 coming soon, I wanted to talk about the main event because nobody wants to talk about Aaron Blanchfield versus Macy Barber. So we're going to talk about Merab Dvalishvilli versus Sean O'Malley 2. A matchup I generally don't really care about, which it sucks because the UFC were really pushing it despite nobody calling for this. There were a lot of other matchups that could have been interesting. Or we could have had Merab Dvalishvilli wait, which is a thing many people said they were fine with, simply just because he made a quick turnaround from his UFC 306, I believe, whichever, when he won the title against Sean O'Malley, to turning around for UFC 311 to face Umar Nurmagomedov. And we were like, yeah, we can wait. We can wait for Sean O'Malley to fight someone if we're going to do a Sean O'Malley rematch. He beats someone like Peter Yan. If Peter Yan wins, then he gets to face Merab Dvalishvilli in a rematch coming off 3 wins in a row. There was multiple things we could have done. We could have had, and it was the big fight that we're all talking about, Pantoja moving up to face Merab Dvalishvilli. I think he had earned it. And if he beats Kai France, I think he even more earns it, unless Manel Kopp does something good in an upcoming matchup. I don't know if he's scheduled to fight anyone or what they're doing with him, but you get the idea. But the point is, they're going with this Sean O'Malley rematch, even though Sean O'Malley definitely does not deserve it. And despite all of that, people are still picking him to win. And not that I think picking Sean O'Malley to win is necessarily a bad thing, considering he didn't do horrible in the first fight with Merab. I don't agree with MMA Guru and some other people saying it was a robbery because it was 3-2 in my opinion. But I also don't agree with the Merab fans stating it was 5-0 or 4-1. It was definitely 3-2 from last time I'd watched it, especially in that 5th round where Sean O'Malley hurt Merab. And that's a big thing people are talking about, like, oh, he was able to hurt Merab, so he's going to be more active in this follow-up fight. I don't think so. I think that's going to be a detriment to him because it took him to the 5th round to actually land something meaningful against Merab. And Merab's pace, his pressure, his wrestling, just his mindset is a lot different than anything Sean O'Malley can beat. And even with that, Merab was injured going into the fight. He was injured for the Umar fight. He's done good. People are really pointing out this recent cut thing they saw Merab post, which are we forgetting Merab posted that as well during UFC 306? And that didn't come up. I think there's a staph infection. Yeah, there's a staph infection rumor about that. Where did that play into it? I don't really think we're really looking at it that hardly. I think we need to understand that Merab Dvalishvilli is not going to lose to Sean O'Malley. I personally just think Merab is that much better. I think Sean O'Malley kind of suffers from he's good, but he's not good enough in certain regards, as if he was good enough, they wouldn't have had to curate his entire run to the title so perfectly to get him there. Because let's look at this. I think Sean O'Malley's a top 5 fighter, 100%. I think he rightfully so is a former champion, all of that. Even then, his win over Aljo made a super, super quick turnaround, and Aljo's a big weight cutter. There was a thing with Sean O'Malley's coach basically trying to play mind games and talking to Aljo during it to trick him, which also they tried doing the Merab fight, and that didn't work. And I think there's even a thing where they warned the ref about Tim Welch doing that's his name. So even then, it was the weight cut thing, but still a good win. Then his defense is against Chito Vera, which, yeah, I know I picked Marlon Vera to win that fight. Kind of a stupid pick, but what can I say? Point is, he beats him, and he loses to Merab. Before that, he beats Peter Yan on a controversial split decision that he clearly did not win that fight. And then before that, it's a no contest with Pedro Munoz after losing a round to Pedro Munoz. And I'm just if you're losing to Pedro, even losing a round to him, that's just not good. And then he beat, I think, Julian Paiva, I think that's his name, who's not in the UFC anymore. And that somehow got him into the rankings. So he does not have a good resume in any regard. So I don't know what performance you're going to look at and say, hey, this proves that he's going to beat Merab Dvalishvilli. You can't even use his performance against Merab to prove that to me personally, because Merab did perfectly for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, in my opinion, winning the fight where he needed to, and then just kind of played around in the first and fifth round. So I personally just think Merab Dvalishvilli is going to win this. His takedowns, his pressure, he's got the momentum. I think Sean O'Malley's also, like, the way he's talked about this fight, where he's like, I'm cutting out all of this stuff that's bad in my life. It all seems like a desperate attempt to, I guess, give an excuse as to why he lost the first fight. So he can get into a mindset of like, oh, I didn't lose the fight because I wasn't good enough. I lost it because I was partying. I was doing all this and that, which is honestly a pretty common thing we see fighters do. John Jones famously does it. And he still won't fight Tom Aspinall, but you get the idea. Conor McGregor, he does a lot of partying, and then it falls into excuses that he doesn't necessarily make, but his fans make for certain performances. They'll say for Nate Diaz not trying, but Nate Diaz just isn't good enough in a lot of these fights. But for Merab, he's just relentless. He just is, I think, the best bantamweight fighter on the planet. I think he's the bantamweight GOAT. I think I made an entire video talking about that. If he beats Sean O'Malley, I don't really know even more what you can deny, because the only defense that they're giving for not Merab Dvalishvilli not being the GOAT and Dominic Cruz is the title defenses, which I think is stupid, because when I'm trying to name Dominic Cruz title defenses, the only two I can think about are Uriah Faber, which I don't think is really that good of a title defense. It was good at the time, and I guess it's not horrible, because I do consider the WEC to be like an era of the UFC, because that's basically what the divisions became in the UFC. So he did beat a pretty good dude and a guy who had beaten him, and then he beat a bantamweight Demetrius Johnson, which is a decent win. Other than that, it's not like this dude won on, like, he had like 5 title defenses or 6 or 7. No, he was a 2-time champion because he had to vacate it because of injury. Comes back, beats TJ Dillashaw, defends against Faber again, loses to Cody Garbrandt, loses to Henry Cejudo, wins 2 fights against not amazing bantamweights, and then gets KO'd by Marlon Vera and then retires. I don't think that's a bantamweight GOAT. I think I'd rather the guy who lost his first 2 fights in the UFC to, one very mid competition when it's Frankie Says. That's a pretty bad Frankie Science. I don't know how you pronounce it. Not a good loss to have. And then Ricky Simone, which I don't think is not an amazing loss to have, but fight at night performance, decent performance super early on in the career. I'll give that. And then goes on to just not lose and beats back-to-back champions, undefeated Umar, and is about to beat Sean O'Malley again. I think I've rambled on long enough. Merab Dvalishvilli, unanimous decision.